Hey folks, I'm Michael J. Penny and welcome to the 5-Paragraph Business Plan Tutorials. By now you've looked through the materials and have got the book sitting in front of you. You've seen how the 5-Paragraph Business Plan is action-oriented, breaking big, huge plans into bite-sized objectives. During this tutorial, we are going to talk about your mission. We're going to talk about your solution and your company concept. And at first, this can be very, very overwhelming. It can be intimidating. In all essence, what we're looking to do is gather a whole bunch of detail and boil it all the way down into basically just a sentence that summarizes what you're looking to be able to do as far as a mission is concerned. So we're talking about your venture, and in the book, I highly advise that you're following along. We're in paragraph 2, mission, statement, and directives. And I define venture as a risky or daring undertaking. Now, this is both a business in creation as well as a tangential project coming out of a larger business. We're going to talk about entrepreneurs creating out of the ether, essentially, these mission statements and directives. But we're also going to talk about how do we apply it as a business leader, which entrepreneurs pay attention because, of course, you're looking to grow your company, and how are employees going to take elements of this plan and then turn around and turn it into a executionable operation plan. So just kind of getting into the basic elements of your mission. And I'm not going to give you examples. I want you to come up with your own mission statement. There are a lot of examples that are out there. Okay, it's a Google search away. I'm going to be honest with you. But how they came up with it is the brilliance in the basics. It's the fundamentals of how they came up with their mission statements. So a strong mission statement, it demonstrates your understanding not only of your target market, but also your overall comprehension of the industry, of the problem opportunity that you're looking to get into. It highlights the size of the industry, the target market, so on and so forth. Within that, as well as describing the type of business that you have and the solution that you're going to be able to provide. Now, I know that seems like a lot, but that's because it's essentially the top of this mission funnel, so to speak, okay? So start by outlining the basics of your mission. And this is just simply put, it's the 5 W's. You can see it in the outline. So if you're sitting there and you're listening to the tutorials and you're trying to figure out, hey man, should I do this, whatever, just do a quick download the outline. It's free, it's right there, it's on the same page as these tutorials. All you got to do is plug in name, email, bam, and automatically downloads. Now you're on the same page as me. That gets you going. As you look through here, and we're talking about the 5 W's, who you're helping, basic customer profile. It could be anybody that is your avatar, like what we spoke of before in that salute report, the unit and uniform. It is that the ideal customer, right? What you are specifically doing to help them, whether it's a good product, service. Again, we're not getting into the weeds of how. It's what are you doing? A good product or service. Where customers purchase. It could be an online retail. It could be brick and mortar. Maybe you're opening a restaurant. It could be a main street business of some sort. People could mail order. They could order by phone. Where are people purchasing your product? When is this happening as far as the timeline's concerned? You need to understand the elements of the problem, hence why we talked about the situation paragraph. So if you're skipping down because of the MET-T TSL template, I totally understand. You want to jump right into it. That makes sense. But please make sure that you're going through the progression of the tutorials so that way it all culminates and all comes together. You need to be able to outline your problem before you have the ability to outline a mission. Plain and simple. So what we're doing is drawing upon elements of our situation paragraph, and based upon that intelligence that you've gathered, That's market analysis. That could be a SWOT analysis of your competitors. It could be doing whatever. You're coming up with a timeline that is associated with this, not just when a person shops, but also the fluctuations that are within the market. So it might be a little bit of seasonality. And even still, we're just talking about a mission statement. We're going to boil this thing all the way down to a simple sentence. And lastly, it's why you are doing this. This does not need to be the last thing. I put it as the last thing because typically what we'll do is who you are helping, who is involved, what you are doing about it, where your customer is, so where you are going to be operating or located. And that comes out in later mission statements. Again, this is super broad. This is 30,000 feet. So where is your customer? The globe. So there's got to be some sort of target as far as where customers are going to purchase. You get this. When it's happening, and of course, why you're doing this. That is the in order to at the end of the mission statement. It is in order to, and you're talking broad, in order to change the world. Whoa. Okay. Individual mission statements and operational plans, when you boil this thing all the way down, it's in order to accomplish one specific tiny little objective task. That is drawn out of this big, huge, fat, whopping, big, audacious goal, massive, why you are doing this. And that can be your own internal mission statement. Who knows? Why are you doing this? To buy an island? I don't know. But have a reason why you're doing it. And a lot of folks talk about your why. But again, this is 30,000 foot. Now we're getting into the mission directives. Look, just coming right out of the book. Okay, there are distinct objectives for every mission. The same is true for business. There are distinct objectives that must be accomplished in order for the mission to be a success. There are tiny little objectives that must be accomplished. Those tiny little tasks, albeit may seem menial at some point in time, come out of these overall company mission directives. Think big, huge company. Think long term. Okay, so if I'm an entrepreneur, I want to create something that is a long-term. I mean, we would all like a long-term business potentially. You can use 5-paragraph business plan for a lifestyle business. You can use 5-paragraph business plan in a very, very selfish way to create your lifestyle business. So if your mission directives on this are entirely personal, I get that. It's based upon your own values and your own code of ethics. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're creating this for a future construct that will have employees. So you're thinking into the future, okay, I'm going to have employees. How do I want them to act? What is, and not how do I want to control them? That's not what we're talking about. Do you want them to be good people, value-based people? What is the values that you would like to instill in your organization? Whatever those values are. What is the code of ethics? Right? You want people to be responsible, I would take it. You want employees to be responsible for their actions. You want to be able to delegate your authority to them so that they can take over certain tasks that fit, hopefully, within their strength base so that they can add value to the overall organization. That's based upon the mission directives that you establish early on, talking specifically to entrepreneurs. When you're an employee, when you're a business leader within this machine, whatever it may be, there are mission directives within that organization. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. Right? I mean, it has to have mission directives. Somebody has to have their stuff together. Otherwise, that company is a gigantic bubble. You see what I'm saying? So you have the ability to pull mission directives out of a higher mission statement from the organization. Do your research within the organization. If you're an entrepreneur or business leader, think about it this way. You had those mission directives on hand. You had the ability to hand this down. It goes both ways. Hence why the 5-paragraph business plan, it works in a variety of different capacities, in a variety of different companies. So again, we're honing right down. Given the mission statement and the mission directives, you construct an outline of the overall long-term mission. I cannot stress it enough. This is the long term. This is the large scale. This is the big scope. Outline the company and concept. Outline the product and or service, and outline entry and growth strategy. Notice how that's tailored for an entry stage in entrepreneurial endeavor. Now, I would very much so argue that there are entrepreneurs inside of large companies who are constantly taking stabs at markets that would otherwise seem a 90-degree offset from that company. That's not at all a bad thing. It's diversification, right? It is an entrepreneur who is saying, oh, there's potential over there. We could make entry. We could make growth in this way. It's got to go into this pitch that they're going to pitch to hire. If I'm an entrepreneur, it's got to go into my pitch. Then I'm going to pitch to investors. That's the whole point. The 5-paragraph business plan was constructed so that you could present it, so that you could brief it. That's the point. It's based on the military's operations order for that specific reason, so that you can brief a team and anybody else who is going to commit themselves to this overall endeavor. And that's the biggest takeaway here. Okay, so when you outline the entry and the growth strategy, you can do it from an entrepreneurial standpoint or an intrapreneurial standpoint as well. This whole portion is funneling down into what is the mission inside of that MET-T TSL template. So if you're following along in the book, what we've done is we've broken down the mission statement so that you know it is a mission statement for the long term. The mission directives within that statement, right? So you're creating the scaffolding, the directives, the value, the ethics, code of conduct, so on and so forth. That is within the mission directives. Now you boil that down and you have the final mission in your MET-T TSL template. This right here shows your potential to make a return on an investment, to disrupt a market, to be able to get out there and actually get some, so to speak. And the point being is, and here's the key, all right? The point is to get people to ask you how you are going to accomplish that mission. So you boil it all the way down to who, what, where, when, why, with the intent of them potentially asking you, how the heck are you going to do that? And that is when you've got the company and concept, the product and or service, the entry and growth strategy, and then bam, it leads on to the execution paragraph, which is going to be your next tutorial episode. And when we get into the execution paragraph, that is the meat and potatoes. So if you're following along in all of these tutorials, if you're on the template, if you're looking through the guidebook and you're following along, you'll notice that we have really framed up this big, long execution paragraph. The execution paragraph has multiple subparagraphs and everything else. The situation and the mission frame up for a potential audience to ask you how. That right there is basically the beginning of an elevator pitch, so to speak, right? Because it gets you in the door. Okay, now if you notice in the MET-T TSL template, right up front is mission. The key here is to have somebody ask you how. Okay, so in an executive summary, you need to draw somebody further into the document. And if you're following along in the guidebook, or if you've got a workbook or something like that, which, by the way, if you want to get a workbook, all you've got to do is complete a 15-minute phone call with one of our advisors. You can schedule a phone call right now on this page. It just pops up, bam, while we're still listening. You can schedule that call. You can get in with one of our advisors who are at least going to give you a foundation, a starting point, along with a workbook so that you can get going. And then you can hop back into these tutorials and fill out the workbook. For those of you who have got the guidebook, you've got the key right there. That, along with the tutorials, join our community, be a part of the overall community crosstalk discussion, so on and so forth. More on that later on. With this mission, the key is to get people to ask you how you are going to do what you're going to do. Okay? In an executive summary, and you'll see this in the guidebook, I put the executive summary at the bottom. Spoiler alert. The reason why I did that is because, first of all, it's the first thing that everybody's going to see. It's basically like your cover letter for your entire business. If you don't understand every element in your business first, then how are you going to be able to write that cover letter? It's near impossible. You're going to start writing it and then realize that you're missing elements and then go back through it. That's why you're taking the MET-T TSL template with you, because what you're going to do is fill out the MET-T TSL template along the way so that you can plug it in back up front. Now, when I read that mission statement, I'm going to be like, damn, how the hell are you going to do that? Okay, so that's the whole problem and scope, because what you've done, notice the order. In the mission statement, who, what, where, when, why. What you've done is you foreshadowed in that mission statement just a little bit of the problem. And then under enemy, you're highlighting what that problem is, what the opportunity is that's right there. Now you've got them head scratching. How in the heck are you going to do that? Next up is team and support. So now, if you're thinking from the investor's perspective, okay, I see where you're going with this, right? And then you start going through the different considerations. That's why you got to keep listening through the tutorials. You got to get the guidebook. The key here is that when you're done, you're going to have a MET-T TSL template that is enticing. You're going to have something that is that cover letter where somebody reads it and they go, how in the hell are you going to do that? And then they start going through the entire plan, right? Scratching their chinny chin chin, thinking whether or not they want to invest in this or whether or not they want to help you out. They want to be a part of this opportunity, what have you. Or they realize that it's a terrible fit and go their separate ways. But the point being is that with that MET-T TSL template, what you've done is created an enticing document that makes them want to continue to read your plan. And then when you stand up and you brief them the plan, and you'll read this in the guidebook, I literally outline how to put together your pitch in slide format. You're taking your 5-paragraph business plan and you're putting it into a pitch. This is based on the military's 5-paragraph operations order. The intent of the operations order is to brief it to a platoon of Marines before you walk outside the wire and fight in combat. Okay, that is the intent of it. You are going to stand up there and you are going to tell them every last detail. Now, if you're one of those people who is out there who's about to go on patrol, you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, I would really want that amount of detail. I'm committing my life to what you're about to go and do. Yes, you better have all the details. Now think about it in a business sense. If somebody is committing themselves to your project, we're talking about a team, we're talking about a business owner. Let's say you're a business leader and you're briefing this to a business owner because you'd like to expand in another way. Think about it in that same intensity, in that same level of seriousness. It deserves that maturity. Now, think about it as far as from an investor perspective. You're going to be reading this MET-TSL template, that first cover letter, that executive summary, and you're going to want to continue to read on. And then when they come in and they brief it to you, and they hand you the document that they're about to brief you, right? And then the slides all coincide with the document that they just handed you. That's the whole point, okay? So I cannot stress it enough. Look, the templates are always going to be free. Download the template, listen through these tutorials, listen to them time and time again. We're always going to be here if you need to. And we encourage everybody, schedule a 15-minute phone call. When you complete that call, we'll put together a workbook and get it back over to you. Then you'll have a starting point. You go back through the tutorials, right? Let's say, for instance, you want to pursue further, buy the guidebook. The guidebook is going to take you all the way through the pitch deck. The workbook will give you a starting point. It's going to get you off and rolling. Okay, but I'm going to tell you, all of the stuff, all of the detail, and much greater detail is in the guidebook. These tutorials are here to help encourage you along that guidebook. All right, so honing back in, and I'm going to wrap this episode up real quick here. This mission, and again, it's the M in the MET-TSL template, the final mission that you come up with, who, what, where, when, why, should make people ask you, how are you going to go about that? And you have foreshadowed by talking about the company and concept, the product and or service, entry and growth strategy. This right here, this is the bottom of that mission funnel. And it frames up somebody to ask you, how are you going to go about doing that? And then bam, you go straight into the execution. Now, keep in mind, and we'll talk about this later on, when you're pitching this, you're going to have a climactic moment. You're going to have in a storytelling sense when you use this in a pitch. Okay? And a lot of what we're doing here is framing up how the next section is going to be created. Make note of that. The 5-paragraph business plan is an accumulative thing. You are adding on to this by creating the section above, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, you'll create your executive summary, plug it into the top, and then you'll have your pitch at the end. So keep listening through the tutorials, get the guidebook, stick with us, join the community, sign up for a 15-minute phone call with one of our advisors. We're here to work with you. It is all about action. It is all about getting out there and just going for it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of 5-Paragraph Business Plan Tutorials. Keep listening.